sensitive content, generative AI can increase the risks of data security and privacy incidents. Companies can use generative AI safely, securely, and resiliently by setting up proper data governance, security, and compliance controls. In the session, we'll discuss what Microsoft 365 Copilot is and how organizations can be prepared to use generative AI tools like M365 Copilot and other AI-powered productivity tools using Microsoft Purview. And I'm going to hand it over to Sean Wales now.
Awesome. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right, great. So let's go ahead and dive in. The purpose of my section today is just to get folks a little bit familiar with M365 Copilot. If you haven't seen it before, just going to do a quick run through the product with a particular eye for the importance of the Purview tools as we move through it, right? So next slide, please. All right. If I advance the slide, or I guess I'm whoever's controlling the slide deck can go to the next slide, or else I can share my own deck, whichever's easier. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So for those who aren't familiar, M365 Copilot is our flagship Copilot product. It applies the capabilities of generative AI within the Office suite that we know and love. There's a number of Copilots, next slide please, that are out there in the world. But given that we're talking about Purview, which is the data and governance solution for the M365 stack, it makes sense to focus in on M365 Copilot because that is where the decisions you make in terms of data labeling, data classification, etc., any of the tools in the Purview suite are going to have their most applicability within M365 Copilot versus some of the other Copilots that are out there, right? So next slide, please. This one you'll have to click through to build it all the way out. Just keep going. Perfect. So just to kind of be direct about it, right? The M365 Copilot product is meant to enhance your productivity, right? The things I'm going to demo very briefly to give you a feel for the product. Those are all going to serve the purpose of empowering you, your organization's employees, to be able to be more productive and save time, right? The power of generative technology, generative AI is, can take many forms, but at the end of the day, it can speak English and you can talk to it, and that's going to allow you to cut down on a lot of tasks that a computer is better at. So I'll be showing you today kind of what this looks like inside of those Office applications that you know and love that are listed on the screen here. Next slide, please. Great. And just as a reminder, this is a similar view. I'm not going to drain this, but just as a reminder, since we're speaking with government customers, the M365 Copilot product is not available in the government cloud yet. We have a commitment from engineering that's going to be delivered this coming summer. We don't know what summer means. We don't know if that's June, July, August, what have you. But in a world in which many other Copilot products, we don't have visibility into when we're coming to GCC, we do know that this M365 Copilot is going to be one of the first AI capabilities to arrive. So this is a good overall map of when things are arriving. But again, speaking just to the M365 Copilot product, we're expecting this to arrive to customers then, which means that our message now and today to any customers is that we have some time to get your M365 environment ready, right? If you weren't looking at Purview tools, if you weren't thinking about how your recording policies are working, data labels, etc., you at least can use this time to, what I say, get the nursery ready before the baby comes home, right? Because Copilot is going to absolutely be mindful, responsive, and honor any security compliance commitments that you put in within your M365 environment. Next slide, please. All right. So I don't think, I know I'm going to only go for about 20 minutes here, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to get through every single one of these, but I'm going to get through as many as I can. The way that we like to demo the M365 Copilot product is with the day in the life approach. I don't have time to do the full story here today, but just again, we imagine the combined power of this occurring when folks are moving between their applications that they would be doing for their work, and then within each application, there's going to be something that makes their normal work a little bit better, a little bit more productive. So these are some examples of the functions that M365 Copilot is playing within each of these applications, right? In Excel, it's helping you interpret and create insights. In PowerPoint, it's helping you generate, organize, and polish your presentations. In Outlook, you'll be able to summarize emails or draft emails, etc. So this isn't a comprehensive list, by the way. A large language model is flexible, so it can do a lot of different things if you prompt it correctly. But generally speaking, these are the areas, I would call them categories or themes of where we see it enhancing our existing product set. Next slide, please. All right, so before I get to show you guys the cool stuff, I want to hammer home a couple of really important, just broader security and compliance points about not just M365 Copilot, but really any of our Copilot products, right? We're taking the same commitment to security and responsibility into the product. One of the ways I like to, one of the common questions I get is, is Microsoft training off my data? And will Copilot mean that my information will leave the tenant, right? There's worries that our longstanding security commitments are sort of somehow put into jeopardy by virtue of the way that this technology works. That could not be further from the truth. I think that the way that I like to simplify this for customers is that I don't think that many people think that Microsoft is reading or training or ingesting customer emails just because Outlook is an online service, an online service subscription that we provide. And that is going to be the exact same case with Copilot, right? So the same terms and conditions that were in place, for any cloud subscription on your enterprise agreements are going to apply to these products. And the way that that works is what's on the screen here, right? You have your tenant boundary, which is yours and yours alone. You control your data. That data never leaves the tenant, boundaries of the tenant. And then you have the service boundary, which is where we maintain our commitment to security, privacy, GDPR, et cetera. Right. So we don't have time to really dig in on the specifics of this, but we can say with full confidence, right, that anything with Copilot is not going back to Microsoft. It's not going out to the open internet. We're not training on it, right? Your data is your data, and any incremental improvements that happen as a result of the model learning are for your organization and not for Microsoft. We welcome deep discussions on this topic with customers who might be more curious about it. Next slide, please. So this is just a little high-level view. Again, each of those little boxes can kind of talk about different areas of the privacy conversation. I'm not going to drain all of them as I go through them, but again, it really is our same ongoing commitments to privacy and data boundaries that are being defined as it relates to AI, right? So, the existing policies and controls that you had with Purview that you currently have that maybe you haven't looked at before are going to be crucial in making sure that you have the control you want over what this technology can do. So we're really putting the capability into your hands to be able to take responsibility for what data compliance and controls are in place. Next slide. All right, I think I put this in because this is just a takeaway. I assume we might have a way to distribute these slides, or if we're not, I'm sure that your designated Microsoft seller will be able to provide this, but this is something that we've been providing our customers. It's just kind of a quick list of links in terms of what IT admins can do to get going, what resources exist, and what some of the recent announcements are. Next slide. Oh, this one might have made it in twice. Let's keep going. I'll go ahead and skip past this one as well. Keep going. All right. So this is the last slide before I'm going to move on to the demo portion, just to kind of cover off on the basic boring licensing thing. This has been out in the public domain for a while, but just in case you hadn't heard, right, M365 Copilot is an add-on license to your existing licensing. This week, we actually announced that you can have either an M365 or an O365 license as a prerequisite. Doesn't matter if you're invested in O365, M365, E3, E5, G3, G5, doesn't matter. As long as you have one of those licenses, you meet the prerequisite for this product. However, this product is an add-on license, right? So the MSRP price, which has been out there for about 6 months now, is $30 a user a month. We feel very strongly that that price represents the value of this product in terms of time savings, saving folks $1 a day or more. And so we have some, we also welcome that discussion in more detail to kind of talk about the value. But for the purposes of today, just want to make sure that folks that understand this is not something that's going to be turning on or showing up in anyone's environment. We have to, your leadership or procurement has to make the purchase and buy the license, and that's when this will become available. And so I think, as I recall correctly, the following slides are more of the kind of the value pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and take control now and switch the demo portion. If somebody from Microsoft wants to IM me on the side, just reminding me when my hard stop is. I think we'd said 20 minutes, so I'm going to try and demo for another 5 or 10, and then I'll hand it off to the other folks for the rest of the session. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and we will do some demoing. Right, and just this is exactly what I want to see. You guys can see a Word document up. I just got to get my cursor over there, so one moment. All right, perfect. Okay, so we're going to start in a blank Word document, which is, I think, kind of the simplest, easiest way to work with Copilot. Give me a second to pull up that blank document. There it is. And now that Copilot's here, you have a license. 2 things are going to happen. Number one, it's going to be showing up in the top right as something for you to interact with, to talk to about your document. But also, you can use Copilot to help draft, right? So I'm going to go ahead and click Copilot. I can also use Alt-I. I'm going to say draft a press release. And I'm going to reference a document that I have on my desktop. This is a great example of where the Purview capabilities come into play. I'm going to be able to have Copilot understand, or understands by default, what files I have access to within my OneDrive, within my SharePoint, on my desktop, etc. Me as an end user, it's using my permissions as an M365 identity to be able to search out for anything that I have access to. So again, it has the full scope of my access, but it will also not bring in anything that I don't have access to, which is why this Purview discussion that we're heading towards is going to be increasingly important. So I'm going to go ahead and just type in that document that it's sitting on my desktop. I don't even have to look at it in Windows Explorer or anything. And this is just a agenda document from a visit of one of my customers to Redmond recently, where the CIO asked me, and this is true, if Copilot could write the press release for their visit. So we'll go ahead and click generate. For those of you who've seen this technology before, this is becoming increasingly less magical, but same idea here is that the large language model, has read hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of press releases. And so based on that training, it can come back with a press release that I could use. A couple key points about this. Number one, I will just emphasize again that this is not going out to the open internet. It is using 2 pieces of information to generate this press release. It's knowledge about what is in a press release. That's a part of the model itself that we're talking to as a service, and then also the document that I grounded on and fed it. So again, it is staying in your tenant when it runs this process. Secondly, you'll notice here that there should be, or most of the time when it does this, it comes with a quotation. And the document that I fed it did not have a quotation inside of it. So this calls out what we consider to be one of the realities of a creative generative AI tool, which is that we are not going for perfection. We absolutely want users to still be accountable and responsible for the information they create with this technology. But our feeling is that the time that it saves, that you would have spent writing a 2-page press release, now frees you up as a person to perhaps go and collect that quotation, right? Alternatively, if I don't like that quote, I can still have Copilot rewrite it, maybe give it some more prompting to tell it to not use a quote, or reference a long document to put into it. We're really flexible all this collectively serves to take the time it takes for me to write a press release down from, I don't know, maybe 30, 45 minutes if I'm really good, down to just a few minutes with the ability to tune it better. So I'm not going to dwell too much on any of these demos. I'm going to move quickly here and again, hope to be wrapping in the next few minutes. But the second to last one that I am going to show you is the Copilot in meetings. So give me a second just to pull that up. Go back over here. All right, so here's an example of a meeting. It was a completely hypothetical meeting, but I had it with one of my colleagues, and we are going to use Copilot to, in this use case, there was a third person who didn't attend the meeting, who hypothetically they're going to be asking questions about, right? So first thing to understand here is that it turns out that large language models need language, and so we require for now, I should say for now, we require for now that meetings be either recorded or transcribed in order to run the Copilot capability on top of it, which is a great excuse or great impetus for all of us to think about what our current policies are with regards to Teams meetings and Teams recordings, right? That typically is going to be an important policy, security, compliance area to consider ahead of adopting Copilot. But assuming that that's all considered for your organization and you're comfortable recording some or transcribing some and all meetings, what that means is that you can ask Copilot either in a meeting or after the fact to recap the meeting, list action items, suggest follow-up questions, etc. So internally at Microsoft, this has been kind of the lowest, the most immediate value we're seeing across all of the things that Copilot can do. Just the ability to very, very quickly recap a meeting, talk about the key topics, capture action items, and be able to save people the time of taking notes. Another thing that's really common is if you didn't make a meeting, you can come back and ask and say, was Sean mentioned in this meeting, or was I mentioned in this meeting? And it'll be able to tell you, was I mentioned, was I assigned any action items, etc. There's a real flexibility to be able to ask it whatever you want. Typically, when I do the full demo here, I ask it very specific things about what was discussed. So it's, it goes far beyond just a standard note-taking app. It really is your personal assistant that you can use to help, if you're double booked, be able to get the relevant information out of every meeting that you attend. All right, so that's Copilot in Teams meetings. The next one I'm going to do, and then I'm going to maybe pause just to see where we want to go here, is our M365 chat application with Copilot. So let me just give me a second to pull that up. Right. One moment, please. All right, back over here. Okay, so normally this is a, I'll just show you briefly, but this is a chat bot that lives on the left rail of Teams. You can imagine your Teams site, and there's just a new thing on the left next to Teams chats, etc. that says M365 chat. Again, I can't show you my Teams environment right now, so just imagine that Teams is sitting on the left side here, and this is the experience. But really what we have here is what I like to think of as the digital chief of staff, right? So here's something that speaks English, or any language really, by virtue of the generative AI technology. It understands your calendar. You can ask it, what is my day today? What is my calendar, etc. And you can use it as your central point of operation for anything you want to do within M365, right? So I've been using this to ask it questions like, where can I find the NDA portal, right? Which is, a SharePoint page that I could never find. I'd go and search for our SharePoint, and I could never, figure out where it was. But again, because it's connected to the entirety of my M365 world, it's going to go and look on my behalf. It understands what an NDA is, understands who I am within the context of a Microsoft organization, and it's going to be able to point me with citations to the right area, right? So you can see here that not only is it just coming back with something, but it's going to tell me who the people are who are going to be able to bring me to the NDA page internally. So this is really going to be something that's going to expand aggressively over time as kind of the main point of orchestration for Copilot. At the moment, you can see here the things that it can do for you really are just aimed at making your day a little bit better, not having you dig around Teams, dig around Outlook, asking it to schedule meetings for you, asking you who certain people are, right, in your organization, so on and so forth. So those are the first three, and I consider those to be the big three. The Word example, the Teams meetings example, and the M365 chat example. I'm going to pause there and just ask maybe BB or somebody else from the group if this is a good time to adjourn and hand off to the next session.
Yeah, thank you so much for that excellent overview of Microsoft 365 Copilot, Sean, and how it helps users to be more productive. So I'll take over the slides from now on. All right. So while a lot of government organizations are excited with their generative AI journey and they are looking forward to it, they're also concerned about the potential risks that are associated with generative AI, right? And if these risks are not addressed in time, then it could either lead to data security incidents or it could slow down the adoption of generative AI. Now, some concerns that we commonly hear from our customers are, users may inadvertently disclose sensitive organizational data to consumer AI apps like, say, ChatGPT or Google Bard and so on. Or users might attempt to access sensitive information like confidential projects or maybe personal data through organizational AI apps like Copilot. And without appropriate data security controls, these AI apps could gain access to the content, it could summarize it, or even create new content based on sensitive data. And all this increases the risk of data overexposure or data oversharing, which can then lead to data security and privacy incidents and result in hefty fines. Also, if organizations do not have a strong data governance policy, they might end up accumulating significant amount of stale or irrelevant data that can surface in the generative AI responses. And this can end up misguiding or providing incorrect information to your end users. There are also other concerns like users generating unethical or high risk content or maybe misusing generative AI for their personal benefits. And then finally, a lot of conversations are going on in the industry around AI specific regulations, what those regulations could look like and how it will fit into the privacy landscape. So organizations are under regulatory pressure to configure the necessary risk and compliance controls for generative AI so that they can be compliant with various evolving regulations. Now, to tackle the security and compliance concerns related to generative AI, it is crucial to grasp the shared responsibility model. And this model delineates the shared responsibilities between the service provider, such as Microsoft, and the organizations that are utilizing the AI tools. Now, from the Microsoft side, we have built foundational security controls to make Microsoft Copilot enterprise ready. For example, Microsoft has strict access controls to customers' data, and your data is yours and it won't be shared with other tenants. And also, all the data is encrypted and protected by industry standards. And like Sean already mentioned, Microsoft 365 Copilot adheres to the Microsoft AI principles of fairness or reliability, transparency, and also Microsoft's existing privacy, security, and compliance commitments. Now, on the other hand, organizations also have responsibility to configure the access controls to determine who has access to Copilot and also how to block risky access. Organizations also need to protect and govern the data that is entered into the AI applications and also the data that is created by the AI applications. Lastly, conducting employee training to ensure users are using Copilot in a responsible way is also very important. Now, Microsoft 365 Copilot has the power to transform the way people work. But before organizations introduce Microsoft 365 Copilot into their environment, it's important that they evaluate and prepare their Copilot readiness journey. Now, depending on the current state and licensing requirements, you can choose the desired readiness journey path. If you have these eligible base licenses and you meet the Copilot prerequisites and recommendations, you can purchase Copilot licenses when it's available to government customers. We suggest you set up the core security and compliance controls that are available to you within these base licenses, and you should be ready to start using Copilot. Or the second path is organizations can choose the readiness journey that is highly optimized for Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now, this path is optional, but it is highly recommended by Microsoft for Copilot readiness, and it can significantly reduce potential risks that are associated with generative AI. Here, organizations can focus on building a strong foundation of security by leveraging advanced data protection and advanced data lifecycle management features that are available in Microsoft Purview. There are also some additional add-ons like SharePoint Premium and Microsoft Priva that can help you with advanced data discovery, content management, as well as privacy management, and it can supercharge your Microsoft 365 Copilot readiness journey. I want to clarify that E5, G5, or any add-ons mentioned here, they are not mandatory prerequisites to roll out Microsoft 365 Copilot, but it will help organizations to automate and scale their data discovery needs, their data protection and data governance needs, and they can be on this optimized path for Microsoft 365 Copilot readiness. In today's session, we will focus on Microsoft Purview capabilities that can help you with Copilot readiness. We will be covering how SharePoint Premium can help you in your Copilot journey in our next session, which is on February 15th. Now, prioritizing security governance, risk and compliance management of your data end to end is crucial for AI readiness. So how can organizations get started? Well, first, organizations need to understand the risks that are associated with sensitive data usage across their data landscape. They need to get visibility into how generative AI apps are used in the organization. Then they can start protecting users from the risky generative AI apps. Once sensitive content is discovered, you can then start prioritizing data classification and then protect your sensitive content and also manage your data through its life cycle based on the classification. Next, it's also important to ensure that any sensitive organizational data has just enough access so that you can reduce data security incidents. Now, if proper access and rights management are set up on the sensitive content, then that sensitive content will not show up in the Copilot responses for users who are not supposed to see them. You can also put measures in place to prevent leakage of sensitive content and prevent oversharing of sensitive data. This will drastically reduce any potential data security incidents due to Microsoft 365 Copilot. Also, it is important to ensure that your existing data is compliant with various regulations like HIPAA or NIST 853 or CGIS, when your generative AI is also dealing with already compliant data. Also, organizations can have measures in place to detect and mitigate any insider risks or communication related violations that can help in their AI journey as well. Now let's go back to the customer concerns that we discussed earlier and see how Microsoft Purview can help address those concerns. So the first concern was how can customers prevent any potential data security incidents with generative AI? Well, with Microsoft Purview data classification dashboard and Microsoft Priva, our customers can get visibility into the risks associated with the sensitive data first. Then with Defender for Cloud Apps, You will also get visibility into how generative AI apps are used in your organization, and then you can manage them securely. Through Purview Information Protection Framework, you can automatically classify and protect different types of data, that too in different locations across multiple clouds. In fact, we support structured data, unstructured data, and also the data that is generated by AI. You can control how sensitive data is shared within the prompts and the responses of generative AI applications. Purview's information protection capabilities are built into Microsoft 365 Copilot, and it will understand the sensitivity labels that you may be already using in your organization. Then Purview data loss prevention policies can help prevent accidental or intentional sharing of sensitive content from Microsoft 365 apps or third-party cloud apps, and even on-prem file shares and your endpoint. In fact, with Endpoint DLP, you can prevent sharing of sensitive content to generative AI apps like ChatGPT or Google Bard and others. And this can drastically reduce data security incidents. Then, like I mentioned earlier, insider risk management solutions, that will also help you fortify your data security because it can correlate millions of signals from various locations within the user's context, and it will help identify and mitigate insider risks within the organization. Then next, to ensure a Microsoft 365 Copilot does not generate incorrect information due to stale data, organizations can implement Purview data lifecycle and records management solution, and then they can apply retention or deletion policies so that they can get rid of stale data that is no longer required. Also, Purview communication compliance policies can help detect code of conduct violations in various communications like your emails or chats, and also future Copilot conversations. So it has the potential to identify scenarios where users are inappropriately using AI. Then Microsoft Purview also provides different controls and policies to identify and mitigate any compliance risks that are associated with generative AI. So example, you can preserve or delete users' Copilot interactions based on your retention schedule. You can audit any Copilot interactions of the users. You can also discover users' conversations with Copilot using Microsoft Purview e-discovery solutions. So as AI continues to evolve, regulatory policies on AI are expected to become more stringent. And Purview provides the necessary compliance controls to help you stay compliant with these regulations and safeguard your data. I will now hand it over to Richard, who will talk about Purview overview and also walk you through different use cases that show you how Microsoft Purview can help with Copilot readiness. Over to you, Richard.
Much appreciated, Bibi, and thank you for that rundown. All right, I'm going to see if I can take control here from you. And let's see if I can advance these slides here. Nope. All right, so then I'm going to share from my side real quick so we can look at the presentation. We're going to skip ahead here so we can talk about how this looks in practice. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of how Copilot works with Purview, but it's been a lot of conceptual, hypothetical, very high-level descriptions. So I want to start trying to use some of these use cases and marry those conceptual ideas with practical application. One of the most common concerns that we've heard from customers is data leakage. How do we make sure somebody doesn't put our data into a Copilot prompt or into a third-party chat prompt? Copilot isn't the only AI system out there, as we all know. How do we make sure somebody can't highlight an email, go out to ChatGPT, paste it, and say, give me a summary? Well, that starts with getting that visibility into your data. Content Explorer is one of the ways you can do this, and it'll tell you what you have at rest in people's email, if they have social security numbers in a document in their OneDrive, if you have items in SharePoint or even in Teams chat. The Content Explorer can tell you what's out there. So it starts by giving the visibility. Once you have that visibility, then you need to know what to do with it. How do you prevent that data from going somewhere? Now, this is going to start using some of the advanced features that BB mentioned earlier with Purview. In this case, endpoint data loss prevention. You can create an endpoint DLP policy that can identify specific information, we'll say social security numbers, and you can say, prevent these social security numbers from being pasted into the sites that I designate as dangerous. So you don't want people to put the social security numbers into bard.google.com. You can identify that. ChatGPT, same thing. If you want to make sure they can't put them into Google search and run some kind of global search with it that way, same thing. And I'll show you a couple of screenshots in a moment what that will look like. Now, that by itself, steps 1 and 2, are pretty global. You may need a little more flexibility, and that gets us into this third item down here. This is another advanced feature that is coming for government customers. This is called adaptive protection. So instead of just basing your security around what's in your files, you can also base it around the risk context of your employees. If somebody has had a couple of bad employee reviews and there's a concern that they may retaliate, or if they've been caught before maybe trying to exfiltrate data unintentionally or intentionally, that person can have different security applied to them automatically than somebody else who's doing the exact same job with all the same access right next to them. This is what we call adaptive protection. It takes advantage of telemetry that's input into our insider risk management tool. And this way you can have two people doing the exact same job with all the same standing access. And one of them can be blocked from putting social security numbers where you don't want them to, while another can be allowed to do so. And as it may be part of their job and they may be more trusted. So let's see what this actually looks like here. Starting with the Content Explorer, this is a sample of what kind of data will be turned up. This uses the same sensitive information types that you can access in data loss prevention and in your auto labeling policies. When you input content into 365 as your users generate it, we will go through and index it, and we'll start telling you what's in that content, where your bank account numbers are, where your social security numbers and your physical addresses are. This whole list of items right here. And we'll start breaking it down where it's at. And this is the content that's at rest. How many emails contain bank accounts? How many emails contain tax ID numbers? Where are people putting in my foreign U.S. social security or my U.S. bank account numbers or my foreign information if I have to do business internationally? We'll start by telling you, hey, here's where it's all at. And this is where you have the most information concentrated. In this case, social security numbers. So that might be where you want to start with your policies. Now, that by itself is kind of a high level. This is the AI Hub. This is a feature that's coming. We're trying to get it out to government customers as quickly as we can. This is specific to Copilot and to other AI options. So this will start telling you what's in your prompts when people talk to Copilot or they talk to other chatbots. Are people putting in credit card numbers and asking, hey, can you tell me if my credit card number has been used out there on the web somewhere? And maybe they don't realize that's a sensitive leak. If you want that insight, our AI Hub will be able to give it to you. So over here on the left, we can see this is the sensitive data that people were putting into prompts. And by and large, credit card numbers are the most, followed right here on the screen slice by social security numbers. And the AI Hub will actually break it down further for you. You want to see how many total prompts were put into different chatbots, we can tell you, this is how many went into Bard. This is how many went into ChatGPT. And so if you were starting out with your DLP policies, you could say, let's set up a DLP policy that is going to target Google Bard, and it's going to target chatgpt.com. And we want to look at social security numbers and credit card numbers. And we want to prevent people from being able to type those in or be able to cut and paste them. Now, you can set up your policies like that just based on this information, and it will address a vast majority of the data leaks that you're seeing right here. Now, if you wanted to get even more visibility, you can. We'll break it down even further for you in the AI Hub. So you can see how many people are using what particular chatbot or what particular service for AI. How many sensitive information types are going in? Who are your top users of AI assistants right here? This gives you an organization level visibility into what people are doing with AI. But you may need to get even more specific than that. This is a very high level overview. It's good for building out your beginning policies. But what if you need to investigate things that have already kind of happened? The AI Hub can help you with that by giving you even more detail. So here we can see individual activities that are recorded. You can see what happened, files that were uploaded to a cloud. You can see if it was blocked or if we simply recorded it and alerted you, what's known as auditing. You can see what type of information triggered the activity, and if that information had a sensitivity label applied to it. You can click on an individual activity and we'll actually get even more info. So here we have our poor user named Mona. She got caught uploading some credit card info to Bard. We can see date, time, we can see the user account. We can see if it was blocked or, again, if we just went ahead and let it happen. In this case, we audited it. We can see the IP address of her device that uploaded it. And we can see what application was used to attempt the upload, if it was blocked or if it was audited. So the AI Hub that we are getting to government customers will give you a lot of insight into how people talk to your chatbots, to Copilot, or to other AI services. Now, moving away from that, let's look at how that might work if they're using Copilot in an application. So we're not using chatbots anymore. We want to use this very useful Copilot button right up here, and we want to take full advantage of that. Okay, fine. How do we make sure people don't grab this and go throw it into a chatbot? They're halfway through their document and they want to get some more information on it, but it's sensitive information and we want to make sure it stays in our environment. Well, DLP can help with that as well. I mentioned earlier that DLP can help prevent copy-paste operations. Well, on the previous slide, we saw somebody copy it. So now, if they decide they want to paste it into Google Bard, this is what they will see instead. We will check it at the point of attempted paste, and instead of being pasted, they will get a message here that says, hey, you cannot do this. We're sorry, you can try it, but it won't work. Now, this doesn't stop them from copy pasting it everywhere. If they want to go back to their document and they want to copy paste and just put another paragraph down here, make some modifications, if they'd like to copy this into another Word document and paste it there, you can allow them to do that. You have as much or as little flexibility over the control of this security as you want. So you can say it stays out of the chatbots, but you can still use it in our environment where we control it. Now that's scenario number one. How do we stop somebody from doing oversharing then? We've already detected how to stop people from accidentally leaking the data out. Oversharing is what happens when somebody asks Copilot for information and they get more than they anticipated. Maybe they weren't expecting to get physical addresses of their boss in the results, but it turned up. So how do we set up the guardrails to make sure that doesn't happen? That's going to begin with communication compliance, and it's going to begin with sensitivity labels. So communication compliance can be scoped to the prompts that are given to Google or to Copilot. So people type something in and maybe it contains sensitive information that you care about, communication compliance can tell you. They put those prompts in. From there, you can start applying auto-labeling rules. Auto-labeling will interact with Copilot based on the sensitivity and based on the labels that may be applied to the files that it returns automatically. On top of that, Copilot will honor whatever permissions a user account does or does not have. So Alex Wilbur here can only get the Copilot results that he already has access to. What does this mean? So if we look at the auto labeling, first of all, we can put the label on their documents before it's even saved. This is just as soon as they typed in some information. In this case, we have Project Obsidian as our sensitive information type. And without even saving the document, they typed it in and we have put a label on it. And the label can encrypt it and it can imply permissions. It can do whatever it is you need to do. Now, once the label is on there, if somebody who doesn't have access to that labeled document types in something into a Copilot prompt and says, hey, tell me about this, Copilot will respect those permissions and it'll say, hey, sorry, you can't do it. That way, you don't have to go back and make sure nobody can look at that information on your own. Copilot is automatically honoring the permissions you've already got in place. Somebody who does have those permissions, though, well, they can get those results just fine. They'll get the exact same results you would expect them to. Now, Copilot will automatically inherit, as I mentioned earlier, whatever the most restrictive label is on the files it has access to. So if it pulls up 5 or 6 files in its results, whatever the most restrictive, highest priority label is, that's what's going to be applied. So here we have this confidential Project Obsidian label. That's going to be applied to the result, even if some of these returns have something that says no label or anybody can access it. So Copilot is automatically interacting with your sensitivity labels to begin with. And that leads us to our last scenario. Non-compliance, malicious use. People who intentionally try to abuse chat. How do we stop that? So far, we've assumed good intentions. So now we can go back to communication compliance. That's going to monitor the prompts, the things people type in and talk to Copilot about. We obviously want to know about that, right? So here we have an example of Adele typing in, hey, how do I manipulate the stock market? Okay, well, Copilot, first of all, can't help her with that. And second of all, we want to know about it. So we have already got a communication compliance policy in place looking for that specific information. Now that can be organization defined. You can make it look for whatever it is you needed to identify, either based on keywords or based on our AI-powered trainable classifiers. Now, once we know what they're doing, you can start turning on retention policies. So let's say we need to capture some of that information. We need to make sure we keep it for legal purposes. We're no longer assuming good intentions. Now we need paperwork because we're worried we might have to investigate somebody. So the retention policies can keep those logs around and we can dig them out when we need to. So how would we do that? We can go into the audit logs as well. Those are going to be preserved along with those prompts. So the text of the prompt and the records of the activity can both be discovered as needed. And as needed looks like this in an e-discovery investigation. So now we can get those logs, we can get the text of this person's prompt, along with all the relevant information, date, time, user account, and we can return that to an investigator. And if they need to make a case that says, hey, this person may represent a risk, they don't have to manually go digging through this stuff to find out what happened and when. We're monitoring it for you already, and you can turn it up whenever you need. So these are just 3 of the more common scenarios that come up when we're talking about not just using Copilot, but also how to use it securely, how to make sure employees can't abuse it, and how to make sure it doesn't accidentally turn your data over. With as popular as AI has become and as quickly as it has, there is a real concern that maybe we're going a little too fast, or maybe some people aren't considering the security as they adopt it. And we wanted you to know from a Microsoft perspective, we're implementing security at every stage. We want this to be something you can trust that also accelerates productivity. It shouldn't have to be one or the other. Now, we do have several resources here to help you. So we have said, hey, there's a lot of stuff to do, but we also understand this is a lot of work. These are kind of the three basic pillars we recommend starting with. Get the visibility with the Content Explorer, set up your endpoint DLP policies if you have access to them, automate data labeling if you can. But again, if you don't have access to this, or maybe you have a small staff, and these all look like really good suggestions that you just don't have time for, that's fine. We can help you with that as well. We have several partners that we work with, and I have two of them on screen here, that can actually help you with a Copilot readiness assessment, and they can tell you, here's what you may need to do, or here's what you may want to consider. Avanade is one of them, and they can go through your environment, tell you where some of the holes are at, where you may want to consider some of these measures and what it'll take to implement them. And Protivity is another. And these are just samples of the assessments that they can both do for you. But if you're interested in either of these, especially because Copilot won't be available to GCC customers until this summer, so you have time. If you're interested in these, let your Microsoft account rep know. We can connect you with these resources to start getting your environment ready. And with that, we have one last thing to talk about here. Donnie, are you on the call with us?
I am.
All right, I'm going to move to the next slide here, and I will let you take it from here.
Thank you, Richard. I just wanted to touch on this topic because we're going to present on this more widely on a session upcoming. I think it's the third session, which will be published shortly. As you may have all heard, we also have a Copilot for security. So what this is our first generative AI security product that is intended to empower your IT and your security folks to do more and to do so faster. There's going to be two experiences that will be delivered, which we call embedded and standalone. And again, I will go into the details of these experiences and how this product can fit into your security ecosystem. But this is essentially a platform that will provide assistive capabilities for you to be able to ask natural language questions of your incidents that you may be seeing through your XDR console or through your SIM solution. Our embedded experiences will be included for Priva, Purview, Entra, so our identity solutions, the DLP, data protection and DLP solutions, all of those will have an embedded experience where Copilot for security will be available right on the console, where your administrators as well as security folks can ask natural language questions in order to whether to write a new policy or to compare existing policies from an admin perspective to really asking questions of incidents and events and things that you're seeing within your consoles and you're not fully sure what to do with. So stay tuned for that. We will dive deeper into the embedded as well as the standalone experience with Copilot for security on a future session. But the standalone solution will also allow you to bring in third-party plugins where you can ask natural language questions of other solutions you may have in your environment where there's incident-related data that resides within those products. So with that, I will say more to come later and hand it back to, is that back to BB or Richard?
I can take it.
Okay.
We have one last slide here that is our resources slide. This webinar is being recorded and it will be available on our YouTube channel within a day. Most likely it'll be uploaded shortly after this. And if you're curious, That YouTube channel is right here in chat. All right, now we have a few minutes left. Are there any questions that anybody had during our presentation?
I have a question.